Hello and welcome back to Richard Plays Games. My name is Richard and I play games, and welcome back to Airport CEO. It's been a little while. We started this one a couple of weeks ago. Haven't come back to it. To be quite honest, it's because I kind of just didn't really want to play the game. I do like this game, and it's a game that when I get into it, I really get into it. But I just wasn't feeling it. And I started playing Pharaoh, and I started playing Planet Coaster, and I just thought, I'm going to give it a miss. But I just thought today we'd sit down and we're gonna start some passenger service using the airfield that we set up in episode 1, just as a basis. So let's continue, let's get into it, and let's see what we can set up. Okay, here we are where we left off in episode 1. We have the basic layout of our airfield, our general aviation stands, and up in the top left hand corner, our services, fuel and the like. Just a heads up that my audio file that corrupted when I was playing before, so I'm trying to remember what I was talking about while I was playing. Here I'm pointing to our stands, and what I believe I was saying is that I'd built this airfield with expansion in mind. So these stands were always going to be the stands that are going to form the gates of our passenger service, which is what we're going to be setting up today. So regional airport, congratulations, you now have the basics of airport operation. This is essentially telling us we can continue just to build general aviation, or we can move up to passenger service, and we definitely want passenger service. So the first thing we're going to build is a terminal. Now, on my YouTube, I have a very strange YouTube algorithm because I watch a lot of random stuff. But the other day a video came up that was essentially the history of airport design, and me being me, I decided to give it a watch. And one of the airport designs it talked about was essentially a pier system. So you have a central terminal with piers that come off with gates next to those piers. It's a very common design around the world. Not used so much in modern airport design. They tend to now use more of an island design, but we're going to use a pier design for our first terminal. I think it's just going to be easy, and it's going to work well for the level of what this terminal is, because it's essentially a domestic / regional terminal. So we've got our pier here, and then we've got our main terminal area where we're going to build things like check-in desks and such. So what we're going to do now, because of the audio issues that I have experienced, let's get into a time lapse. Let's get this built, because we know how Airport CEO does take some time to get everything built, and then we'll pick it up once we've got the basics of our terminal down. Okay, we're back. So you can see we've got the basics now terminal. We're just having to take a loan because I ran out of money before I could finish off everything that we needed. But those parallel lines, there was another thing in the airport design philosophy video that I watched, and it's quite common in older airports that you'll kind of walk through, the door from where you've exited your car or got off your bus, and you'll be met with this kind of wall of check-in desks. And then it kind of breaks your view, and it's been found to be quite confusing for some passengers about where is the next place for them to go. So the newer sort of design ideas is that you have these parallel lines that are perpendicular to the entrance way, so that passengers can essentially see all the way through to the back wall of the terminal building as much as possible, or at least into the security checkpoints. And what it does is it helps with passenger flow. So we've kind of gone for this design, and at the moment the airport is going to look a little bit like a big warehouse, because I've kind of started to build with expansion in mind. So there's going to be check-in desks either side of these like central office areas, and that will happen as we expand out and we need more check-in space for the flights that we'll get out of this terminal. We have our security area in the middle there, so the security checkpoints, and then the exit from the secure zone. So that red sort of checkerboard pattern that you keep seeing, that's where you designate into the game what is a pre or post security checkpoint. So that red area is all the area that is post security. So we've just got our check-in desks here, and I'm essentially trying to just sort of spruce this area up a little bit, make it look a little bit more welcoming. I ummed for ages about whether I would put carpet down underneath the queuing areas, because I didn't really want to, but then I remembered that, especially in the States, like airport carpet is quite a popular thing, and there's a lot of airports out there that have very famous carpets, and I know, for example, Orlando Airport, which is where the city we're in on Airport CEO, that has a very iconic airport carpet. They sell socks and all sorts, or they give away socks, and whenever they do that on Twitter, I know a lot of people are really, really calling out for to get themselves some free airport carpet socks. And if that's your thing, then awesome. I think it's cool. I kind of like it. We're just dropping some floor in here. Again, it's not very uniform at the moment. It doesn't look particularly good. The airport is just going to look quite janky as we expand this terminal to be eventually take jet service. And I think it will never take the game breaks plane sizes into small, medium, and large. So the smaller your regional kind of regional planes, your regional turboprops. And then you get medium, which are the larger turboprops, up to your sort of 757 is probably about the biggest size that you would get in a medium plane. And then from there, then it would be large. And I don't think we'll ever get large plane service to this terminal. This is just going to be like a domestic terminal. If we even keep it once we establish, what we might do is come back and delete it later once the airport gets successful enough and big enough to expand, but we're getting a little bit too far down the line there. So you can see that stand, that's the first stand that I've designated a boarding desk for. So you can see there's boarding desks next to each of the stands. They are then where the passengers use to board the aircraft. I hadn't changed the runway yet to take commercial service, which is why it was saying it was non-functional. Going to get some queuing done for the small security checkpoints here. I don't think we're going to open all four at first. The small sort of regional passenger service, which is what we're going to get done in this episode, you're talking probably max maybe 15 passengers per aircraft, either incoming or outgoing. So we're not going to have a huge amount of need for multiple security checkpoints. Again, this is just purely built with the expectation that we are going to expand, and so we're going to need that. You're going to need those extra checkpoints a little bit later. But just building in some queuing for our aircraft checkpoint. For our security checkpoints, and just kind of again sort of sprucing it up. making it look kind of nice, because let's face it, the airport doesn't look great right now. So we are just about ready. We need to essentially designate that these are stands that are eligible for passenger service, but you can't do that while there are general aviation services at the stand. So I essentially had to turn general aviation off so that these aircraft would leave, and then I could then designate that these were stands that were available to take passenger service. The next thing we needed to do is to hire our staff. So we're going to need passenger service agents, ramp agents, and security guards, or people to man the security checkpoint. So we're just going to go in and we're just going to hire, anyone that has their bar is in the green. Just really focus on good staff. If I'm being really honest, in the game, apart from the amount that you pay them, I'm not particularly sure what difference it makes. I think it can affect the way that the happiness of your passengers, but really we're just green equals good. So we just go through and we find green bar sort of applicants and just hire as many as the game advises us to at that point. So we're going to get back into another little time lapse until we get some passengers in the building and we start getting our first passenger service to land. Okay, and now we've had our first passenger service land. You can see we had some passengers waiting in the terminal here, but our flight from Statesville Regional Airport has arrived. Our first passengers have exited the aircraft and they are on their way through the security exit checkpoint. So you start by having to sign master contracts with airlines. So we've signed a few master contracts, and then you can see this is the flight, essentially where you schedule the flights to come into land. So we've got a few due in today, but they have to be at least 3 hours ahead of where you are. So we move into Sunday and we start placing them in Sunday morning. I only signed a few contracts at the beginning. I think that I took anyone that was like a 2 or 3 star airline, and then I just realized, actually sign them all. It really makes no difference whatsoever whether you sign them all or if you just take a few. Really what you want is as many flight opportunities as possible, especially at this point in the game. Some of the flights can be very, very small. I think this is about the time I realized that all 4 passenger service agents that I had hired were actually just manning the information desk. So no one was going and manning the check-in desks. So all of the passengers you can see floating around there, they are just not making their way to the flights. So in a minute, I'm going to place some windows at the front. Windows caused me a few problems, but I started to realize that no one was departing at the airport on planes. They were all leaving through the front door and getting back onto buses. And I couldn't just make sense at first, but if you see down in the bottom panel there, next to the staffing panel, there's a big red exclamation point there that is just like, hey, you have a shortage of a specific type of staff member, but I'm too busy placing windows. I don't notice at this point. You start getting the up in the top left corner, these, as you see there, like things are delayed, and I'm like, why are things delayed? And then this is when I start to clock that boarding hasn't started. Why has boarding not started? Why are people not checking in? And this is when I start to clock that actually, I've got no passenger service agents available to actually man those boards. As you can see, we're short by quite a few, so we go in and we hire pretty much as many more as we can. We get rid of all of these not particularly good applicants, and we just keep hiring passenger service agents in an attempt to make sure that we are going to have enough people to man the check-in desks and the information desks, and that was a bit of a mistake on my part, because you don't need the information desks. The information desks don't do anything for you. But there you go. You can see everyone starts to leave. They all go through the front door. They don't get on planes. A few make it through, but at the end, I didn't actually get anyone to depart that day, at least on planes. We close a couple of, like I said, of these security checkpoints. There's just no need for us to have 4 open and working security checkpoints. And then really from that point, it's just a case of scheduling enough flights and getting the passenger numbers rolling. The size of planes we're dealing with here are super, super small. Right, the next thing we needed is emergency services. It's telling us that sometimes things go wrong and that we need to prepare for that. So something that the game didn't used to have but has now is essentially projects or research projects, and we had to research to get a commercial license, which has now opened up a whole world of new things that we can research. But the first thing the game wants us to do is essentially these emergency response units. So that's going to get us like police, fire, ambulance, the kinds of things that you would have if your airport was experiencing an emergency. You can see here I'm going through and I'm starting to schedule some more flights, but what I'm doing is I'm looking through all of the available flights that are suggested to me so that I can find the ones with the most passengers. You can see in the top right hand corner of the little flight bar that there's a number there, so 542. That's how many days that particular flight is going to run for. So you're kind of not scheduling just on the next day, you're scheduling multiple days in advance for these flights. And you just need to be careful that where you place a flight on one day, that it doesn't mess up your schedule multiple days forward. At this point, when we're dealing with quite so few flights and quite so few gates, it's not so big a problem. But one misplaced flight for 3-4 days, perhaps 6 days into the future, that gate may be not particularly efficient because you've just plunked a flight like in the middle of the day and nothing else works around it. The other thing I try to do with the scheduling, and there is an auto planner feature which I will eventually turn on when we get to a much, much bigger airport, because it really is hard to keep up with the scheduling of the flights. But the game will try and schedule essentially just in blocks. So you'll get, what have we got here? 7 stands. So you have 7 aircraft arrive, 7 aircraft depart. And so it will just come through in these waves. And I don't really like that. It doesn't come across as particularly realistic. You wouldn't have that in an airport. You wouldn't have every gate used and every gate empty at the same time. There's this kind of churn, this constant churn of flights arriving. That's me there pointing out like that I'm trying to keep not just being in blocks. Obviously there are blocks forming as the flight time sort of it leads to that. But what I'm really trying to do is make sure that something is always at a gate, something is always arriving, departing, just for the realism that it's not efficient. It doesn't make the game run better. It doesn't make the game, doesn't do anything for the game. It's just for me, for my realism. You can see we've reached the airport's maximum flight capacity for the day. Again, that's something I didn't know that we had. So I see up there it says flight capacity 25. We need to build a larger air traffic control tower to increase that. So we're kind of stuck right now. This is as many flights as we're going to get for the time being. I decided at this point that I probably should build some toilets because I realized that I hadn't built anything yet. There's nothing airside apart from just the gates, and that's not really what we want. Eventually we are going to get things like food service, cafes, lounges, shops and stuff. And even in these small regional airports, that is what we are right now. You're always going to have some kind of retail, some kind of place for passengers to buy food. Even the smallest airport would have at least a kiosk to sell a sandwich and a coffee or something like that. So. But again, it's something now that in the game we have to research. We need to get that used to just be available to us, but now it's not. We need to research that. So that will be something that we will probably pick up in the next episode once we get the all of the emergency services up and running. We're just going to try and sort of professionalize, I guess, for lack of a better word, the airport a little bit, so it isn't essentially just a big open warehouse with some planes parked next to it, which is, not really what we want to go for. It's a good quality airport that we're trying to build. Building the toilets now, you can see we've got our morning flights have started to arrive. Passengers are waiting by their gate to board. One thing I didn't do or didn't get done is you can change kind of the costs of like how much it costs them for each passenger, you know, passenger duties, things like that. Definitely something we're going to increase as we look to make sure that the airport is making money. One thing that I do or have had to do in the past, and I'll be interested to see if the game still requires it, is essentially leave it running for some time, just so that we generate some money, because it can be quite slow in that point. One thing I hadn't noticed at this point is that I actually have a lot of money, because the game has essentially gifted me $1 million in-game dollars, and I'm not sure exactly at what point that happened. I think it's once you've successfully have your first passenger service arrival, but I'm still paying off my loan right now, and if I'd noticed I would have got that paid off much quicker. But that is something that we are going to get done before we end up paying back too much money for that loan. We had just an information board here. It's purely just for decoration. It's not needed there, but just again that realism factor, which is something that I always try and take into account when I play games like this. That's pretty much it. This is really as far as we got. We didn't get anything else more done in this episode, in this playthrough. We got our passenger service up and running, and that was essentially what we wanted to do. So thank you for watching. Thank you for playing along with me today. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please do give the video a like. Why not drop a comment down and let me know how you would design an airport, or what you think about the one we've designed. And if you do want to see more videos like this, then please do hit that subscribe button, because we will be playing this game fairly regularly. Please also check out the other videos on the channel. We do have Way Back Wednesday, our series where we're playing through the 1999 city builder Pharaoh. And we've also just started a new awesome studios park in Planet Coaster, and there will be a new episode of that coming out very, very soon. But until then, thanks very much for today, and I will see you when I see you.